Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. Um, for all our members out there, as always, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here. And as y'all check in on the show this week, um, just to give you an update of everything that we're doing and probably some of the things that we're going to be looking at um, in our morning watch that's going to come up in a few hours, uh, looking at some things that we're going to be discussing. And we got a show tomorrow night with Chris. Um, Chris excited about, and I've been doing some testing at the range and about looking at some follow up that Chris and I had discussed about possibilities of the uh, struggles if Maggie was, you know, those injuries that occurred to her and her position and what our analysis of that and how correct were we. And I think we were pretty correct. And I went and did some more testing, and I have a little slide or two I'll show you tonight and give you a little heads up of where we're going to be heading to tomorrow night with Chris's show. And also for the morning watch tonight, we'll be talking about some of the lessons learned that we can learn from evil. And that's more towards law enforcement and society as well. We all learn things about how um, exposed we as individuals can be to someone who is stalking us knowingly that we may not know it due to ever how we behave daily and our in the case that you do fall victim, a victimology would be done, and it would expose the things in your life that were that could have put you in the place or in the path of someone that would do you harm, and that's all the basis of the victimology. But also the lessons learned is that we can look at these cases, such as um, three of the cases that I have a lot of knowledge of that I've worked on with my channel, of course, is Delphi, and we saw the how law enforcement could improve on an investigation, and then we see what happened in Idaho with Idaho 4, and we see what a absolutely brilliant investigation can bring about and how quickly, and some of the techniques and the strategy they used, and even as quick as they were in the Idaho, it was still not fast enough for some people. You know, they were just 3 months afterwards start yelling, "Is it going to go cold?" Or 2 months later, and so people have a unreal expectation, and law enforcement also the expectations of how we have to look at the lessons that can be learned by law enforcement. Richard Allen, we saw where he fell through uh, the cracks, and then we see with Idaho how successful they were, and then we see a case such as Murdoch, and we see law enforcement responded quickly, and then we see that some of the CSI work is lacking. And are we better now than we were 20 or 30 years ago, 40 years? Absolutely. Um, are we as good as we'll be in the next 10, 20, 30 years? No, not so much. But that's some of the things I'm going to be talking about tonight on the morning watch. So any of the members that wants, we'll start the morning watch tonight at 12:05, just after midnight. And I generally do it for about an hour, hour and a half. And just discuss that, and we'll be discussing any topic that any of the viewers want to talk about, in addition to lessons learned from evil, because we always, law enforcement, um, while a majority of law enforcement absolutely try as hard as they can, and there's going to be failures. There's chaos. When you go out there, you're hunting and you're starting an investigation. There's chaos, and so much can be missed. But anyway, let me say hello to a few people right quick, and then I'll get into this little brief slideshow. I'll show you a couple of things I've been working on today in the lab and dark room. I've been in total darkness most of the day. trying to do some luminol, and found out something about my synthetic blood today. Um, I was uh, I was worried about if the synthetic blood would react as normal blood with the amido black. Learned something today. And so amido black works off of proteins and things. The synthetic blood is lacking in that. It's made mostly, uh, it appears, obviously, it's used mostly for the luminol part of aspects of it, which it performs flawlessly with luminol. Although it did have a reaction with the amido black, but not what I was hoping for, because it doesn't have all the proteins in it. And so, anyway, all right. There's D. Glad to see you. Pigeon, good. This will do nicely. Glad to see you. Mike Experience, glad you're here. And Melissa, let's see here. Let me get over in here. Appreciate all y'all being here tonight. Robin, uh, Robin starts off early. Hi, everyone. Just got back from the Waffle House. They were out of grits, hash browns, and sausage. Oh my goodness. No, tell me that's not. Oh man, that'd be disappointing. I'm sorry to hear that, Pamela. Your son's father. That's absolutely a terrible. Yeah, that's unreal. If at some point you want to send me something about that, I absolutely will look at that. If there's anything I can do for you or anything, let me know. That's terrible. Yeah. Yes, stalkers are scary. Yes, they live in a fantasy world, and anything you tell them is not anything. It reinforces how much that they believe your relationship is. That you know, some of those individuals are absolutely true evil. Hello, Betty. Good to see you. And Pamela. Yeah, that's she sent me a message saying he's in where I put him. Yeah, absolutely. She is a absolute monster. And but if you would send me an email, steve@truecrimeweb.com, and I'd like to look at the case. Um, I'm curious about that, and it's important for people to understand the dangers of people out there that will stalk and place. And just like we saw in Idaho, you know, one of the victims suspected they were being stalked, and of course, law enforcement says it's not related. But is that true? Um, as far as what that person that reported it at the time thought that that instance wasn't, but I would say that they were, and the connection obviously hadn't been made. It will be made in court because it will play a part in the trial of his stalking, watching of those victims, and what made him make that decision to carry forth those attacks. And so um, uh, we'll see some part of that in there. All right, let's go right quick to a little presentation that I'll be talking about in the coming days. Next week, last night's show, of course, we were talking about the shoe print transfers from blood onto surfaces, and so that we could figure out and how hopeful we can be that there was some type of blood transfer DNA throughout the house and possibly into the vehicle that was operated by Koberger. And if that's the case, they'll have that DNA connection, and it will be something that the defense will uh, have a hard time overcoming. Hey, walkie talkie, good to see you. Miranda, is also good to see you. But and I set up this thing. It's just over 40 feet. So by the time you add and subtract, this runway is I think the furthest measurement of a footprint is 46 feet, but you start out about 2 or 3 feet in, so you subtract, so it's just over 40 feet on this runway. And I had Mrs. Steve walk all the way down the middle, turn around and come along the edge, and then cut across and go back up the other edge. And I wanted her to do this so that we can see that if the individual, the offender, had stepped in a passive pool of blood, regardless of the size, it doesn't have to be that it absolutely um, uh, encompass the whole foot, but just any part of it. And how far would that transfer go? And of course, you can see clearly when we first come out of that passive pool that shoe prints are easily distinguishable. But the further you go along, the transfer every time takes away the substance and the amount of transfer. And I'm using synthetic blood, and but still, it's designed to work and behave just like any type of animal blood. Because when law enforcement trains with blood, we have to train with actual blood, pre-synthetic blood. Back when we first started, we didn't have synthetic blood. I think we used horse, but they use all different types now, from lamb, sheep, horse. So they have a walkie-talkie. Appreciate that. This is super interesting. Thankful for your insight. Absolutely. Thank you for your support. But I wanted to analyze, and like I said, I ordered the chemicals, and I didn't think I was unaware and unsure with the synthetic blood work with the amido black that I'd ordered, because amido black works with proteins that's in the blood. Luminol works with the iron that's in the blood, and so I wasn't real sure would the testing be as good as I thought. It had a reaction, but nothing like what it normally would have. So we'll get to see that in just a minute here. But this is one of the from the dark room of my experiments today of what luminol at the 24-foot mark. You can see that they're even on the left side where that's the natural transfer with a normal eye view of the eye in daylight at 24 feet. You can see when you and above it to the left where that arrow goes to 116 feet to the left, you can't visually see almost anything. You can just barely see that there's something there. But when you turn off the lights and you hit it with luminol, the picture on the right is exactly what comes into view. Now, when you're looking at it in total darkness, your eyes won't see it at this level of intensity. But you run it through some filters with computer programs, and you can brighten this thing up such as this. I think this is a second generation level that I did the contrast and enhanced it a little bit with running it through the filters a couple of times. And so the footprint at the 11 o'clock position is absolutely something that you wouldn't think was there. And that is the importance that if you're at a crime scene and you may not have that perfect 24-foot print that's on the right, all you may have is that footprint that's on the left that's marked to the 116 feet. But that's still important information. And you'll have to make a decision that if you have that, is there a way of, of course, you photograph it, you document it, and then you have to decide what's the best collection way. And there's nothing wrong with cutting holes in floors or walls or anything, whatever the surface is. There's not a problem of cutting that out and maintaining it, for the fact it's important whenever you're going to a homicide that you have that first generation evidence, because it is the best and most authentic piece of evidence that you can have, that can go to the lab and it'll contain all the details without being lost to any type of anything like a photograph being out of focus or some type of lift that might not make good contact with uh, some type of characteristic or um, identifying mark that's within that image. And so that's the bad part of just photography or some types of lifts. Sometimes, like I said, I never had a problem. I'd cut a hole in anything; it didn't bother me. Um, for the fact, like I said, you only get one shot at this stuff, and we don't want to leave evidence behind. Let's see what we got here. Yeah. Oh, what do the red arrows indicate the path that Mrs. Steve walked for me on the runway? Uh, Mrs. Steve is I've asked her over the years to assist me, even when I was working at my job, uh, that she would, anything that we did to try to figure out things. She's always been very active and wished to participate. But this was I set out some poster board end to end, and Mrs. Steve walked down the middle, went to the very end after stepping into this passive pool of blood on the right, and she went all the way to the end, turned right, came back down along the right edge, and got back behind the passive pool, and then walked up the left edge of this poster board to maximize as many footprint transfers as we could, so that we could see at what point does the transfers go from being visual to being coming Latin or latent prints, invisible or not visible to the eye, or easily discernible that you wouldn't see them. And so this is what allows that to and we ran this course, which as you can see here, the one at the 24 foot, you can't see it. I mean, you can see the 24 foot, but the one that's up there around 9, 10, 11 o'clock of it, you can't really see it. But when you hit it with luminol and total darkness, it pops out. And I had several of them. I didn't process every poster board. I'll use them in the future as we need them. And then on another case that we were looking at, that I'm going to be talking about tonight on the morning watch, is this defense expert, Mike Sutton, that came in for the case in South Carolina on Murdoch. Um, and and this is something that Chris and I will be covering tomorrow night in this show. And I just want to give everybody a heads up that this expert, when he was in there and testifying, one of the things that he spoke about that was overlooked by a lot of people, and even me, I didn't give it its full weight. But when they went in and did the Faro scan, which is that computer generated ability to go in there and create um, computer generated images and recreate a crime scene and put lines and things. I don't have that technology. You'll see what my technology is and what we've had to work with. And it's just old school, but it works well. And I'll show you what my lines versus his lines look like. But it's important that what happens with CGI, you can get so reliant upon modern technology, and you can create images and you can put figures in those images, and you think you have a true understanding of what's going on in that two-dimensional view. And even when you create that three-dimensional, which they have 3D imaging now, so that you can walk through a crime scene, but it's a different thing when you go out there and actually recreate that crime scene, and you're standing in a real world crime scene that you've recreated, and now you get to see what these numbers mean, because he drew two lines. He said the representation of the gun is at one point the gun that there was two measurements made from the bird cage, and if you follow those angles back across the where Maggie's body was recovered, that in that area, one of those lines from the birdcage angle crossed her body around 16.2 inches above her body. or above the ground, which her body was laying on. And then the other one, because there was two angles shot, so that from that, or two angles that popped up in the equipment being used. And so they gave that as a bracket of where the gun had to be between those two angles. And it was at, I think it was 27.6 inches. And you can go back and watch the video. And it's important to realize that 16.2 and 27.6, that, you're only talking around 11 inches there. And that 11 inches is critical. And as you'll see in tomorrow's show, when I sent Chris the video, but this is the CGI imaging. And so you see that we have this figure that we have no idea. And they were saying that this figure was around 5'2", so that he could mount that gun at his hip while standing at 5'2". And they never did take it all the way down to the 16 or uh, 0.2 inches above ground, but they held this gun somewhere around the 27, 28-inch hip shot mode, and put this image that they said is around 5'2", 5'4", and so that this individual would be that tall to take the eyes away from Alex. And I can understand that. That's what defense is supposed to do. And of course, they did a dog kennel also of what that angle was. But the only problem where they've got this guy that's behind shooting into the dog kennel there, the shell doesn't eject to the proper location. And as in the recreation that Chris and I talked about, that I recreated. But this is what I did. I simply went up to my range that I have and put these angles in, and I pulled string and marked them with blue line. And I put the representation of Maggie, of the dummy, under, and so that I could visually see the position of her body, and then I can see how high those lines are and walk around them and interact with those angles, and it tells you a lot. And I learned a lot, and as you'll see tomorrow night, and is very. I hadn't even considered it. I mean, I considered it, but I give it a lot of weight now. That I think that when that shot went off, you'll see exactly where during the struggle, exactly where Maggie was and exactly where the offender was. And so I just found it uh, uh, very telling. Hello, Copper Horse. Good to see you. Let's see. Let's try to get catch up. Uh, um, did you ever go back to your mock crime scene in the woods? I will be going back. I've got to order. I run out of luminol tonight or today as I was in the lab. I'd forgotten to reorder some luminol, and I will go back probably next month after I get back from Texas, because we got a trip in Texas, and so I'll go back up and reprocess that outdoor crime scene and see how far it's deteriorated, and if luminol will work in that outdoor range. That would be almost 6 months. You could still see some of the staining on the trees at 3 months, but I'm interested to see what the 6 month mark is also. But I looked at it. I drive by it all the time. Oh, oh, Cynthia Gaines, thank you for your support. Oh, also, forgot the blue light earlier. I'm sorry, but here's blue light for both of y'all. Thank you. Y'all have to get on to me. I'm not as good at the blue light as Mrs. Steve. Yeah, let's see what we got going on here. Hello, Jill. Good to see you. He says, I'm sure your way will make more sense. And it, like I said, I hadn't considered exactly, but once I go up there, and it is the computer stuff and the technology, you can get so wrapped up in it, and you don't realize that numbers mean something that in the real world versus just looking at it with your eye. But until you put yourself in those positions, it's a little bit different. Ran out of aluminum. Never thought I would hear that statement. Yeah. Well, that's almost as bad as running out of eggs and hash browns at the Waffle House. That'd be terrible. Betty says, Mr. Steve, have you ever visited the body farm in Tennessee? No, but I wanted to. Um, and it at that time was the only body farm um, that I knew in the that was in the United States. Now, I was told just a few weeks ago that Georgia has a body farm also. So I'm gonna see if I can get there. And if that's the case, I'll go there and see if they'll let me in to participate and see what's going on. I look forward to it. But um, because there are certain things that uh, occurs at body farms versus what an officer. Now, the experiences I had in my career, and I've seen, more death than most people would, you know, ever desire to see or in the normal career. And not all deaths are homicides. Sometimes they're accidental. Sometimes they're uh, um, self-inflicted. Sometimes it's just nature. And you have to look at all of them and investigate all of them for the fact that you don't know when one is possibly another, because there's is staging is a real thing out there in real world. Debbie is a new member. Thank you. Appreciate that. Or thank all your support. Let me get that. We appreciate all your support. That's going to go a long way as we move forward. Let's see here. Let's go down through here. Mike, the rifle accuracy only is consistent being shoulder fired, as you know. Yes, but accuracy is dependent upon a lot of factors. The closer you are, the more likely you are to bring gunfire on target, and so you know. Uh, Within just 5 or 10 feet, I have a video that I created for Chris that he showed. At 20, 30 feet, from my hip, I can still shoot 1 or 2 inch groups at 30 feet from the hip, um, and but um, that's not guaranteed, and that's on paper. That's not at a human target. I was a sniper part of my career, and I've shot targets out to 1,000 yards. Um, and But I spent a lot of training and a lot of hours on the range, and traveling across the southeast to shoot on some of these military ranges and things, and um, being trained by everyone from uh, experts to the FBI sniper teams and military, and sharing those experiences and learning about those gun platforms. And but yes, shoulder fire is absolutely the most accurate. And but there's people every day that get lucky and shoot a firearm from the hip or drop a gun and it hits something and can absolutely destroy someone's life just by never being aimed at anything, just being dropped and going off. But you're correct. Pamela, how long will you be in Texas working on the case? I spoke, well, I didn't speak, but the scientist from um, Illinois sent me a text message Thursday and Friday trying to confirm the timeline. And I contacted the family in Texas, and they're supposed to get back with me after they check the calendar. We were supposed to be out there this week, but they moved it back to April. And so we'll have to see. Um, Now, the scientist says it's going to take from 4 to 5 days. So once we're boots on the ground, whatever day that we arrive, whatever day that this family, who are the current owners of the properties, allow us, we've got 4 or 5 days that we should have everything done in those 4 or 5 days. If we get real good at it, we may be done in 3 days. If we get weather that doesn't, it may be 7 days. So we're going to be from 4 days to a week. Have no idea. And so, like I said, I got to get that scientist from Illinois down here, and that's this platform that and y'all support and our members supporting us allows us to do that. Thank you. But it's going to be a few days. Mrs. Steve's not going to go on this trip with me. She's got some other things that she's going to have to take care of. True Crime Web, can law enforcement lift fingerprints off spent shell casings to match fingerprints to who loaded the firearms, the rifles? Absolutely. I'm I've got to look back, and I'll do a show just on that, processing shell casings. And not only that, but they can get touch DNA off the shell casings and things of that, and off the magazines and different parts of the gun. And so there's a lot of different evidence that when someone loads that magazine, and it's important sometimes that, that fingerprint may not actually be um, known as who, as being the offender, because a gun can be loaded by an individual and can be stolen by somebody or borrowed by somebody, but that fingerprint or that DNA profile can lead you back to the lawful owner. And when you get that lawful owner, of course, then they may be able to identify who has that firearm at that moment. Like Richard Allen said that he never loaned his gun to anybody, and yet his bullet is found between the two, between Libby and Abby. But yes, you can. It's not always guaranteed, but you can. Do you think a person will get in trouble if they went to Moselle to look? Laugh now. I'm traveling and can make a detour with my husband and have to bail me out. You can always, you know, knock on someone's door. I think that property, someone said that property is no longer um, in the owned by the Murdoch family. I don't know if that's true or not. And you may be able to ask a local who owns it and be able to ask the owners, "Hey, can I go there?" I'm tempted to go over there myself. So maybe we can both get bailed out. Oh, this will do nicely for Luminol Fund, $2. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, Luminol Fund. Appreciate your support. Hey, Debbie, good to see you. There's Dave. Good to see you. And yes, I have to turn on that blue light. Thank you, Copper. Mrs. Steve is much better at that, but she sits there waiting for that for someone so that she can hit that blue light. Yes, Dave. If send that to me. You may have sent it today. I hadn't checked my email. I don't know, but yes, send that to me and I'll look at that. Appreciate it. All right, I'll write that down. Alex F. Sneezy. Sneeze. I don't know. That's a weird last name. I don't never seen that before in my life. Chris Allen isn't very bright. I believe you are correct. Hello, CJK. Good to see you. What is the blue light on YouTube? That blue light. Oh, I don't know if the blue light you're talking about. This blue light is anytime at Mrs. Steve. She always wanted so that we can do that for recognition of anyone that supports our channel. I'll throw it on there. and she's much better at it than I am. True crime. I've been wondering if the bullet casings at the Murdoch crime scene were tested for fingerprints that have could have been Alex. Um, that would have been a something, and I know that a fingerprint expert processed parts of the crime scene, but they never did mention about the shell casings, and it would have been interesting um, if those fingerprints had been on any of those shell casings. And good observation, and it's something I've wondered about. Um, and through the loading of some of those firearms, you know, uh, it doesn't mean always, because certain people leave great fingerprints all the time. And then there's some people that will not leave a fingerprint for anything. It just depends on how some people may use certain lotions on their hands, and they easily would transfer those oils. And some people have extremely dry, flaky skin. Those people that have dry skin do not leave good fingerprints, not as much as the ones that have more of a oily excrete a lot of different, uh, uh, you know, almost when you shake their hands, you can feel the moisture in their hands. Those people leave excellent fingerprints. If that phone ever rings, yes, we are all in trouble. Yes, if that phone rings because it's not hooked up, you're correct. The bat phone, we need a see-through dome for the bat phone. Oh man, y'all bringing back memories. Do you think they have Richard Allen's DNA in the Delphi case? I believe it's there. Now, have they discovered it yet? I don't know. I know they say they have partial profile, but I do believe that Richard, if he's the offender, his DNA is there somewhere. And like I said, it's so hard to find it sometimes. And will they ever find it? Don't know. But as in most cases, uh, sometimes it's never discovered. And then we look at cases that are 30, 40 years old, and then they find DNA from some little article that they send in. And our technology has progressed to the point where they can, which is absolutely great. And so it's under those conditions that we hope for. Josh Boss, I keep hearing staging in the Stevenson case and vague suggesting that it's similar to Delphi. What you know about Steve? Have you covered it before? Um, I don't know um, the details of the Stevenson case. I know that there's a lot of differences as far as crime scenes and victims. You know, we're looking at two children with Delphi. We're looking at an older married couple in a home in another case. And the problem being, even when you have multiple victims and things, and um, people may have similar mannerisms in committing crimes, doesn't mean they're linked. I mean, there's only so many words that law enforcement uses when we talk about crimes, and we'll be saying things like, we have a partial DNA, we have staging, we have non secular, we have, we use those terms, and those terms can be, you know, very general. And but when someone else hears the exact same terms of two different crime scenes, and the terms are used um, in certain ways, people can jump to the conclusion that, oh, since they said that these are exact same things that are said about this crime scene, then therefore they're identical. But no, there's a lot of things in there. It can be a lot of different variables, and um, I don't see anything right now that says yes, they are. Does it? Will it come to pass that they will? I don't know, but it seems a lot of dissimilarities to me. Let's see here. Let's see. Oh man. Ah, Steve can't go to Waffle House without arresting 14 people. The 14 people, it was that those two families, that was at a Shoney's. The Waffle House. Now I've arrested dozens and dozens at Waffle House too, over one or two at a time, but never at one showing at the Waffle House. But I have at Shoney's. We loaded up several patrol cars. Oh, oh, Melissa. What Mr. Stevens arrested people thought he was a CSI. Yes, in my career, I had a 20-year career. I started off in the jail and went on the road and then into investigations. But even as an investigation as CSI, that even when I was CSI until my last few years, and I'm talking about last 3, 4 years, was I full-time CSI. Prior to that, I was certified for many years as CSI, and I would drop whatever my duties were at that time or whatever cases I had. And we were a smaller department. And then I totally focused on the CSI part of it. But the even when I was, like I said, in the investigations for those many years, um, we still arrested people, and I was still on SWAT, um, and um, and still did all that stuff and all that training. And um, you know, when you wear the badge, you arrest people, and you know, regardless of what title you have, being it road patrol or investigator. Steve, do you think Richard Allen was calling anonymous tips to the Delphi case to throw off LE? That's interesting. I hadn't considered that, but it's possible. Miranda Lee, what is your opinion on the John Benet Ramsey case? I looked at that, and and Chris and I even did a show on it. I think, you know, uh, I don't know that much about it, and of course, there's everybody's opinion about it. Um, I'm going to go on two officers that I respect a lot that said it's outsider, um, and um, and of course we have John Douglas that believes so, and then we had uh, what was Smith is his name, um, and and he was a legend in Colorado and had worked all those hundreds of cases and had a high success rate, and he could process crime scenes and understood a lot about human nature. And he believed it was somebody from the outside, and they have all the information. And I know that there was, you know, an indictment for family. I understand that, and I know that people are extremely either you say it's family or you say it against, on each side. Um, but the you know, I've been through the grand jury, and what they say about a grand jury is that you can indict anybody, and that's true because indictments mean that it's only you have enough evidence to take them to court. Doesn't mean that they're going to be found guilty in the court by a jury, but it is enough information and to convince and to take it to a jury trial, and that's all the indictments are. Um, and so, I while I respect grand juries and things, I've been in there and seen where a very dominating individual can go one way or another and lead those juries. And it's not always just a district attorney; it can even be someone on the jury panel, grand jury panel, that can lead certain decisions. Dang it, what's the Waffle House story? Oh, I've got a lot of Waffle House stories, and I'll tell you some of those in the future. The closer I get to retiring totally, you'll see it. Walkie talkie. So greasy, sweaty fingers are the best. Yes, and if they have any type of oil, blood, or any other type of fluids on their on fingers, absolutely, they are the best for any type of transfer. Absolutely. Hello, Tammy. Good to see you. Yes, I haven't revealed it yet, but I will. Ah, man. Um, well, this here, well, now it may be going out to the public at large. It's supposed to be members only, although I do have a large number of people in it tonight. So it could be going, because YouTube does that sometimes, uh, that you'll do a live and it's supposed to be members only. And then all of a sudden it jumps to the masses. And but I will be having the morning watch tonight also. And so for the people that are, if this is by some chance not just members only, welcome everybody here. Glad you're here. But if it's members only, I thank everybody that's here. Snell, oh no, I hope I haven't missed much. Oh no, we just talking about some things that's coming up, and as we move forward on some of the cases. Thank you. You say I'm awesome and funny. I don't know about that. And nice. I don't know about that. And no, I would never mean, never. Uh, my father was was an individual that was a fascinating individual, and as most people would think about their fathers. Um, and but he was of a different generation. He came through the Depression, and then through Korea, and he would absolutely smile at you as he shot you, and he shot several. And he's first generation law enforcement. I was second generation. What's your opinion on Summer Wells case, Mr. Steve? That is something else. I really need to go up there and look. That is extremely high risk in the middle of the day, middle of the afternoon. People in the house watching TV. She's in a lower area. People outside working in the garden. There's a lot of that that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And some of the conflicts and stories don't make any sense whatsoever. It's one thing about children being abducted in the middle of the night while they're in their beds asleep and um, come up missing. It's a different thing in the middle of the day when they're inside. It's one thing if they're out alongside roads, but or on a playground. It's a different thing when they're at their home. So I really don't like the direction that puts me, but things happen in families. Now, what family members are involved, don't know. Don't know the case that well, but I would like to go up there and learn a lot about it. Yes, Copper Horse is awesome. Oh, summarize. I hate to see Steve attacked over an opinion. Who's going to attack? Keyboard warriors attack me, and it happens a lot. Ain't nothing anybody can do to me on a keyboard. I guarantee you, I've been hit and uh, with a lot uh, more severe uh, from personal encounters than anyone can ever do on a computer. It just rolls off of me. They're not, I just don't worry about opinions because any opinion, you know, is that person's personal beliefs and right or wrong, each person's entitled to it. And whatever they think of me, I don't care. And hopefully, because I love differing opinions because that slows down the process so that you can truly weigh all the information. That you have to be so careful in criminal investigations that you don't get so hard headed that your decisions are the one path and only path. And so you have to be open to a lot of opinions because you're wrong sometimes. I've been wrong. I guarantee you in this, I've had my fair share of being wronged in a lot of different ways in my life, and I realize that. I'm smart enough to realize that, and I'm also willing to accept other people's being critical. Sometimes being critical, they're trying to be insulting, but sometimes they're trying to be helpful. and it just doesn't come out the same whenever people are using keyboards. And you have to sit there and read through it a few times sometimes to understand it. But I don't worry about uh, anybody attacking me over an opinion, because opinions mean nothing. CJK, Waffle House night. We need that. Yes. Let me tell you, Waffle Houses were absolutely unreal. Yes, Betty. I enjoy working with Chris. He's absolutely and I look forward to what our future holds for us, because there's a lot of things that we can do that we can't do alone. One who sees, glad to see you here. Yeah, I'm glad you're here. Let's see who else we got here. Melissa, Mr. Steve, anything more on Evansdale? I'm waiting on some more information to come down. I've got some more victimology to do, and um, then I'll probably be going back up there after I get back from Texas again. I think they're going to have a Memorial Day remembrance of Lyric and Elizabeth. I think they said in June. I know the abduction, of course, was July, but I think in June they're going to be doing something, and they want me to come up, so I'll probably go up there then for sure. I know I'll be going up there for the fact that I need to go to the crime scene in the same conditions of more than likely of when um, the Lyric and Elizabeth traveled there, and I believe they traveled almost immediately from their abduction to that location. And um, and I know that there's people that have different opinions, but um, statistically, that's what happens within hours of an abduction. The victim is um, deceased. Let's see here. Let's see. Just going through chat, trying to catch up here. Yeah, pigeon Matt. Oh me, funny. Um, it, you know, it is. It's good to see that justice is done on these cases. It's sad that he did this, and for whatever the purpose of committing those crimes was. And it's surreal. What would drive an individual that the best outcome that they can think of is to take the lives of two innocent individuals. I mean, how selfish and how narcissistic can you be that your world uh, to ensure that you maintain whatever stature that you want to maintain, that you do it at the expense of two innocent lives? Makes no sense. I don't know where Jennifer is. Oh, this community supports and respects Steve. Take a look in the mirror for judgment. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Appreciate it. We'll use that in Texas. But yeah, anybody got anything that, like I said, tonight on Morning Watch, we're going to be talking about lessons learned, mostly for law enforcement and the things I've seen change over the years. And we'll be looking a lot at Delphi, um, um, of course, Murdoch's and Koberger, because they're the mainstream of what my community knows most about. And we can talk about them and see what law enforcement strategies, how, and we can see that law enforcement in each of those cases were on different parts of the spectrum. You know, what happened with Richard Allen and being is one end of the spectrum. What they did with Kohlberger, even from the video canvas, absolutely brilliant. And then we see with Murdoch, somewhere in between that they reacted well, got there, but then when we find out from the defense that SLED took shortcuts, didn't follow protocols, and we see that it was iffy, and we still never have found the motive, the guns, or the clothing. So there was a lot of stuff there. Um, D said, I had a question above. I missed it, so just send it to me again there, and I'll look at it. Um, Question: will you be working on the Dylan Rounds and Michael Vaughn cases? Uh, Currently, Chris is talking to the family about Dylan, and there's some other things and issues with that are currently being pursued by the family, and so we don't want to interfere with what the family plans are and who they have on that. And it's very similar with Michael Vaughn. Um, I have a contact that has direct contact with the family, and I spoke to the mother before. And but if there's other um, professionals working on Michael Vaughn now. Anything I did on Michael Vaughn currently would be a distraction. And so until the family says that they're satisfied with are dissatisfied with who is currently working on those cases and bringing attention to it and working with the from the private sector. And I respect them a lot, and so they absolutely have resources that are far greater than what I and Chris can bring currently to the table. At some point, as our foundation grows and as we move forward and our community gets to certain sizes, we'll also have more resources. And I'm looking towards that date. And we have to take baby steps. And because I only came into uh, working the true crime world back in May, and so it hadn't been quite a year. And I never at that point realized that the door of opportunity would open to assist families with cold cases. And now that it has, I want that door to maintain and be kept open. And so we're going to work towards that end. Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. It's been absolutely amazing what this community has done for me, and y'all support. You just don't realize how much it means to Mrs. Steve and I to continue this mission, because even the Cyclops system of and doing and maintaining that database, Mrs. Steve puts a lot of hours in on that, and but that's what she loves to do. And then of course I go out and we're going to work this other avenue, and we have other cases that we've had contacts on that I look forward to going out in the future. And some of them, some families only want advice. Some families only want us to look at certain information, and every now and then they want us to go out and process something, and I've done that. And but Larry wants us to go to Texas, and we're going to go to Texas, and we're going to search some properties that needs to be searched. And then, of course, with Evansdale, we have another plan of action that will be coming into focus this year as we move forward. So there's a lot of things going on. Not so much. Blue light, please. What happened? Did I miss your blue light while ago? I'm sorry if I did, but we'll turn it on. I get sidetracked so well, and I miss things sometimes. And I'm not on the in StreamYard. Sometimes it doesn't alert me on everything like it does on YouTube. Mrs. Steve works YouTube, and then she has mods that come in and uh, help uh, her notifications of when people assist us in so many ways. Thank you, Cami, for becoming certified for search and rescue. Yes, it is a long drive for us both to Texas, um, and but it's got to be done. There's only one way to do it. Um, Wanted to say, Steve, will you get volunteers where you go, or will you take a team? So far, I've had people that assist me on everything so far. Uh, Normally, it's family members, and although some of the families, and I'm not as good as some of these YouTubers out there as far as creating content and for the to help support the cause. Um, at some point, we'll have to get to that because support is support. Because you can't, you know, the budget is a budget. I wish I was independently wealthy enough to do everything on my own, and then I could just do it. But that's not the case. But but whenever certain things like in Texas, we've got a scientist that has stepped forward and says that they'll bring the equipment, and of course they need help getting to Texas, so we'll do that. Once again, the scientist not independently wealthy, and although they have certain skill sets that I don't possess, and that we need them there, so we'll assist on getting them there, and then and then Chris coming in, he's going to help. He'll bring some people with him, and so we'll have a team in Texas. And but normally, whenever I go out and talk to families, it's generally just family members that assist me, help me, make sure somebody's not breaking into my car and stealing my stuff, uh, because I carry a lot of equipment sometimes. Or flight. You doing both? No, I don't. I do not fly. My crime scene investigation training cured me from flying. And before I retire, I'll tell you about how that and why that is too. That's another story. Um, that is that working with the FBI, spending that 2 week with their recovery team of reconstruction, because one of the things back when we first learned about CSI, that they trained us from the perspective of rebuilding air crashes, major air carriers and their crashes. That if you can reconstruct an aircraft crash, that you can reconstruct anything. And they're right. If you can take all the evidence and everything of all the victims and put it back and figure out what's going on, then you can recreate anything. And that was part of the training that we had way back then. I don't think they do that anymore. And but I saw all the air crashes I ever wanted to see, and I don't want to do any more of those. Can Mrs. Steve be able to go with you to Texas? No, she's not going to be going to Texas with me this time. Um, she will in the future, but not this time. Josh DePosh, thank you for your support. Any advice, Steve, on starting a local true crime YouTube channel? I have several wanting me to bring attention to some old cases in my local area. Absolutely. Send me an email. We'll get together and I will help you in any shape, form, or fashion I can, buddy. Absolutely, because um, the focus of bringing attention, especially even on a local manner, is that there's always unsolved crime, unsolved cases, and people have the information out there. Someone knows something, and a lot of times they don't know that their knowledge is that valuable to the case. They may think it's just simply everyone knows that fact, and they haven't put it together that they're the only one that knows that fact. And absolutely, it, I recommend anyone and everyone that wants to bring attention to cases, absolutely do so. And just let me know, and I will um, do everything I can to assist you in your channel. All right. All righty, guys. We got quite a few I'm trying to see is this is probably my highest member. If this is all members, this is my highest member count that I've had in one live show. It appears everybody is members. Walkie talkies. You're going. Let's see. Can you do a recreation from a case you covered where you could walk us through the evidence? I might do that. I've got to see if any of them are through the system and where they're at in their system. I may be able to do that on some of my cases. I just have to check and make sure that it wouldn't create some type of issue, that someone wouldn't go out there and say, well, this isn't what was this is new evidence or something, because I don't want anything like that to happen. It's not new. I don't have anything in any of my murder books that's new evidence. It's all been turned over to the prosecutor and defense attorneys. But yes, Golden Fire, good to see you. But yes, just let me know, anyone out there that wants to start a YouTube channel, absolutely go for it. It's I've been blessed in my life that I had the training of the government to do what I do. And I know that it's difficult for other people. There's some great content creators out there. Look at Chris. But he has a certain skill sets and he uses them. And so anyone can go out there and be a success. It's not easy from what I hear on that. I've just been lucky that I'm from a law enforcement background and of the CSI world. And I've come along and became trying to become an ambassador for law enforcement. And I've been well blessed by my community and by my growth. It's absolutely humbling. Just donated through the foundation since that's most profitable for you. Thank you for all you do for families. Yes, that is the most money that will be able to be used for the investigating helping families, because the foundation has oversight. There's only certain things you can do with that money, which is work with the families. Whereas if you do certain things on YouTube, you supporting the channel, and monies can be used for a lot of things. Foundation is absolutely used for all of that, and so absolutely thank you for supporting the foundation, and that's one of the reasons we created the foundation, because there was a YouTube channel out there that took a lot of money that was not a nonprofit and wasn't registered. And they were able to go out and buy homes and cars and things and do things with it that you wouldn't have been able to do with a foundation. And so that was one of the big things Mrs. Steve and I wanted to make sure that when people supported us in that manner, that they knew that the oversight was there to protect that monies that's given us. And it is just another way to give people the additional ability that if they want that tax break, they can use it. And we appreciate it. Yes. Thank you for reminding me. Purdue RN. I just saw you popped in here. Good to see you, Purdue. Yes, Miranda Lee. She does get the blue light too. Y'all have to remind me sometimes. How is Purdue RN and Winston doing today? Mrs. Steve loves Winston, which is Purdue RN's big old dog. We will probably, depending on the budget for Texas, we're going to be running close on a tight budget. I think we're going to be close. I think we've got enough, but I don't know how much we'll have because bringing the scientists out of Illinois is something that I originally was going to bring in canines, cadaver dogs, and use that, and which was far cheaper. than the equipment. And I can't say far cheaper, but a couple $3,000 cheaper, a couple $1,000 because I was having to bring in 2 or 3 K9s, because you can't just use one K9. You have to have additional K9s, and you have to have additional team members because the same handler can't put another dog, because dogs are extremely smart. And if anything keys the dog in, and dogs can read emotions, and so you have to have multiple canines. And so to be able to do the Texas thing, I was going to have to bring in at least 2 teams with the science. And then after I brought in the teams, I was still going to have to find some way to find the technologies to find the grave. And when this scientist stepped forward, it took out the canine part of it. So actually, it's going to be cheaper by just bringing the scientists in first, and that's what we're going to do. But I think it's going to be close. Um, but like I said, we still have additional projects in the future. There's a lot to it. This is Steve Evers back home, and be upset that she was having to wash clothing because of some of the situations and stuff. Uh, I was very, very